Well, I grew up in a loving home. I think that's the premise for everything. Lots of laughter. Grew up laughing, making fun of people making fun of me.
Josefina, beg your pardon. She is a University of Namibia graduate and admitted legal practitioner of the High Court, Wazala, of Namibia, with experience in shipping and administrative law, corporate governance, compliance management, and a company secretary. Experiencing in advising board of directors, organizing AGMs for shareholders, Josefina has a keen interest in ensuring that a institution complies and cooperates and operates in accordance with statutory provisions. Josefina is currently the manager for legal services, compliance risk, and company secretary at the National Housing Enterprise, NHE. Whoop, whoop. Now, in addition, Josefina has a keen interest in promoting sustainable management of ecosystems, including land and oceans. She is a council member of the Law Society of Namibia and a board member of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, which is an international body. Look at that. She is currently pursuing her master's in business administration, MBA, with aspirations of venturing into operations and strategic management, and maybe one day run for president. Josefina, top of the morning to you. You have my vote. Best believe you definitely have my vote. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. We're doing very well.
Yeah. So this is just getting to get an understanding as to who you are, what you're all about, what gets you what gets you ticking, what inspires you, and most importantly, where you're from and where you headed to. Tell us a bit about your childhood, man. How it shaped the woman that you are today.
Well, I grew up in a loving home. I think that's the premise for everything. Lots of laughter. Grew up laughing, making fun of people making fun of me. Like everyone who has two brothers. I mean, you're a guy yourself, Morris.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're out there harassing the female.
I know, we don't do that. But no, I get it. Eh?
Yes, so I'm an elder sister to two younger brothers. I grew up in Grijsblok, Katutura. Then went on to Centaurus, where I completed my high school.
Yeah.
And then University of Namibia, where I've spent too much time, like any other law graduate. Yeah.
Centaurus.
We're proud of your name. Yes, that one.
That one. Oh, okay. If I was to have a conversation with your parents,
yes.
would they say that you're a hair raiser? I mean, you are the eldest of three. Mm-hmm. So were you a bit of a problem child, or you did everything that was supposed to be done?
No, and that's really one thing I'm disappointed about. I didn't raise any hair. I didn't cause any trouble.
Right.
If anything, I pretty much did what I do now, gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I kept everyone in check. I reinforced rules. I became my mom. At times, I even feel like I became worse off
deputy
than
parents.
my mom.
Yeah,
deputy parent. To the extent where I think I even parented my mom.
Right.
At some point. So I was always. I always had a rule-based type of approach, which probably explains why I ended up in the space that I am now.
Right.
However, there is a little bit of an explorer in me.
Right.
Guided really. So that's, as a child, no troubles, nothing. Just, school, home, that type of thing.
Growing up and running the streets of Grijsblok, what were your biggest aspirations and dreams growing up? What problem in the world did you want to solve?
There was one major problem, Morris, and my mother's mom, she had it was a knee or foot issue, I can't quite recall.
Yeah.
So the only thing I've actually ever wanted to be was someone that can be able to heal that. So then that obviously...
What, a witch doctor?
No, not a witch doctor. I wasn't exposed to that type of life.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be a doctor. And then obviously as she became better, I think also that dream went out of the window.
Right.
Then I came across the discipline of law. I can't recall the moment, but it must have been sometime between grade 10 and grade 11. And then I've just stuck my guns to that. I've always just wanted to be successful in whatever shape or form. I didn't really have a discipline attached to this success, but once I found law, I felt like it also found me, and that connection have just held onto it. So only two things. One, obviously, was a bit subjective, biased, because it was a reaction to a situation. So law is pretty much what I've always wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we go to a musical break, Josefina, when your feet hit the ground, what motivates you on a daily basis? What gets that fire in you burning?
Everything, Morris, even you.
Wozala, even me.
Even you, just your ability to recall our school anthem.
Yeah, no, it was drilled into us. It was drilled
So
into us.
everything, I find inspiration in almost everything. I think mostly if I have to pinpoint one thing, I would say where I was yesterday motivates me to be somewhere else today, because I think the distance from where I came from or where my journey began to getting here is much harder than from where I am now to where I want to be. So I think that in itself is an inspiration. But I think people just doing great things,
Right.
you know, you doing great thing on radio, my marketing manager over there is doing great things to make sure that, you know, female voices are heard and there's a buzz about everything that's worthwhile. So that inspires me, really.
I really, really want to touch a bit on that, on female voices, and it's a great segue into our next question. But before we do so, let's quickly go to the music. Chloe's saying, do it. We do have Josefina Nekongo, who is our royal hustler this morning. We continue this conversation on the other side.
And that's just how we do it, do it, do it. Yeah, that's just how we do it.
Sounds of Chloe saying, do it. Time is exactly 13 minutes to 8 o'clock. Why does it sound like I'm questioning myself? It's 13 minutes to 8 o'clock. Sibon Mo in the morning. Our royal hustler, Josefina Nekongo, who is just doing the Lord's work, as it were. Something you mentioned before we went to the song was female voices and occupying spaces. Tell us a bit how that looks like for you. And in addition to that, the second part of that is, what then, in your current role, are you going to try and do to encourage and promote that as much as possible for a lot of other younger females and even females within your space, and encourage them, support them to take up space?
Yeah, I think, Morris, really to answer that question, we have to recognize that there is a previous situation that you find. There are fewer women at the top, as everyone likes to say, compared to men. So you first have to acknowledge that culture. So I feel like the little that I can do for status is to acknowledge the status quo, and then to make sure that we have policies in place that encourage a situation that's contrast to that. And having said that, how does that practically look like? That means that obviously in my department, it's not a small department. Opportunities do come up, and without obviously unfairly discriminating towards anyone, it's really to make sure that those opportunities are open to women. And by that is that during COVID, I think one thing I've learned as a manager is that we're not employing just employees, we're employing people. So these are mothers, wives, and so forth. So if you are making your job requirements so stringent, for example, your working hours, your lunch hour is not amenable to someone raising a young child and picking up from, giving them time off to pick up that child from school. So having said that, I'm an output performance-based person. So my working hours, or somebody that works under me, I'm not really interested in what time they come to the office, what time they leave. I'm more interested in what do they produce, because I understand that these are people, with lives, and especially women. They jungle so much, Morris. They jungle a lot, and it's really for us to make sure that those spaces are women friendly, and that those spaces are encouraging for women to flourish, because often as a woman, you have to be failing at something to be succeeding at the other. If she's winning at the office, at home she's not making dinner.
True.
So my role, and the way I see my leadership style, is how do we put performance targets that encourage these women to still succeed at home and succeed at the office.
Josefina, are you hiring? I could be a woman for you, like every day, all day. And also, are you sure you're not running for president? That is such a beautiful response. And I love the fact that you said that it's creating that the freedom and that space to be able to be not only a woman but also excel.
Yes.
And within your area of expertise or professional career. Josefina, a couple of notable influences in your life. It could be a person, it could be an experience. Just a couple to share with our listeners.
Well, I don't know if my mom is listening. Actually, I think I forgot to tell her.
Don't worry, we're recording, so.
But if she does ask, do send her this specific part. My mother. My mother.
Josephine.
my mother. My mother is possibly one of my greatest inspirations.
Right.
I think she has done so much. She does so much for her community, for her children. But outside that, if I'm to pinpoint, maybe I would also go to opportunities. I became company secretary at 24, so 24 hours advising boards. I never took that for granted. I think that experience has inspired and shaped me so much, in addition to my mother, and maybe coupled with her, because she also was there to remind me that it was really a matter of opportunity and luck and God, obviously. My granny won't hear this interview because she doesn't understand English.
Right.
But somebody must tell her I also mentioned God. Yeah. So, yes, so I never took that for granted. And having someone to remind me that this is, it's an opportunity that you got as a young person, and you must do a very good job and not let your youth hinder you, and actually use it to showcase that young people can do things. We can be grounded. We can be part of the table. We do respect matters of confidentiality. Not everything that we hear ends up on social media and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think that has also been an inspiration. And motivated me in the end.
Josefina, I could have you here all day, but time, and you also have a job and your career of being president one day.
Yeah.
With the career that you've had and the journey that you're on and the trajectory.
Yeah.
If I was to, if a listener, somebody listening to you and say, wow, okay, I need to get in more inspiration from this woman. What career and just life advice would you share with some of our listeners?
I would say be ready to be taught. You must be teachable. It's one thing to say, I want to be like Morris, but when Morris shows up, are you prepared to receive Morris and all that Morris journey comes with? So often we aspire to be like people, but we don't appreciate the journey and the lessons that come with that. We just want to end up where they want to be. So that's one thing. And then also, I think secondly, capacitate yourself. There are short courses on the internet about almost anything. There's YouTube. I learned
the University of YouTube.
Yes, the University of YouTube. So when I first got my first big break, so to say, I spent a lot of time on YouTube. So use those free resources, and approach people, have a mentor as early as possible, because I think with a mentor, you avoid a lot of mistakes, because you are able to capitalize on the mistakes that they had made earlier on and not repeat them. So get a mentor. No one is too old for a mentor. I heard my board chairperson the other day speak very highly of mentorship, and that she herself has a mentor, and she's a CEO. One would think, why would a CEO want a mentor? She has done so well, but you're never too old or too successful for a mentor, because there's always someone bigger than you.
Hey.
Yeah. Thank you.
Madam President, thank you so much for joining us. I'm putting it out in the universe. Thank you very much for being our Royal Hustler this morning.
Thank you.
Very, very inspirational. That was Josefina Nekongo, who is currently the Manager for Legal Services, Compliance, Risk and Company Secretary at the National Housing Enterprise, aka the NHE. Beautiful conversation. It will be recorded. It is recorded. You can catch it on our app. Just to get a little more inspiration and relive this experience. That was your Royal Hustler.